He had everything: fame, fortune, a loving family, a name etched into literary history. By the time Leo Tolstoy wrote War and Peace and Anna Karenina, he was one of the most celebrated authors in the world. Yet behind closed doors, he was plagued by a single, haunting question. This is the story of a man who had it all and realized it meant nothing. That question sparked a deep existential crisis that would change everything about how he lived and what he believed. In this video, we're going to explore Tolstoy's inner journey, from despair and doubt to a profound transformation that still speaks to us today. Tolstoy's early life was marked by achievement. He was born into Russian nobility, gained global recognition as a literary giant, and built a comfortable life on his family estate. To the outside world, he was the embodiment of success. But inside, a storm was building. He began to question the point of it all. The praise, the books, the social standing. Was it all just decoration over the abyss? Psychologically, we can understand this through the lens of achievement motivation and the ego's need for validation. Tolstoy, like many, pursued greatness partly shaped by societal conditioning, the belief that accomplishment equals worth. But as with many who reached the summit, he found no lasting peace there. He entered what Viktor Frankl would later call an existential vacuum, a profound emptiness caused by the failure of external rewards to provide internal fulfillment. Everything he valued seemed hollow under the weight of mortality. As Tolstoy wrote in A Confession, "My question, that which at the age of 50 brought me to the verge of ending, was the simplest of questions. What will come of what I am doing today or shall do tomorrow? What will come of my whole life? Why should I live? Why wish for anything or do anything?" Tolstoy's life was filled with applause, but the silence in his own mind was deafening. No matter how much he accomplished, there was an unshakable sense that it wasn't enough, because none of it could stop the fact that one day he would be gone. He began to see that every success was temporary, every joy fleeting, and every achievement destined to be forgotten. He wrote, "Is there any meaning in my life that the inevitable death awaiting me does not destroy?" This question haunted him, growing louder with each passing year until it pushed him to the edge of despair. Tolstoy described his life as being like a man lost in a forest, running from a beast, clinging to a branch over a pit of despair, only to watch it slowly break. No amount of wealth or recognition could distract him from that inevitability. He feared that his end erase everything he had created. He turned to science, logic, and philosophy for answers. If reason had built his life, surely reason could give it meaning. He studied the works of Schopenhauer, Socrates, Pascal, and found them intellectually rich but emotionally barren. Science could describe how we live, but not why. Philosophy could examine meaning, but could not give it. This speaks to the psychological limit of pure rationalism. Our minds seek coherence, but our hearts seek purpose. Tolstoy realized that his intellect could explain much, but could not soothe his soul. As he wrote, "Knowledge is infinite. The human mind is too small to comprehend it. Life cannot be measured by reason." Tolstoy described his inner state with a powerful metaphor. A man running from a wild beast, stumbling toward a bottomless pit, clinging to a branch as mice gnawed away at it. The beast was his end. The pit was the unknown. The mice were time. He felt suspended, helpless, hopeless, waiting for everything to fall apart. He wrote, "So strong is my terror that I long to escape from life." He searched for answers in philosophy and reason, reading deeply into science, metaphysics, and logic. He hoped that if he could just think clearly enough, he might make sense of existence. But the more he searched, the more he realized. Reason could describe the mechanics of life, but couldn't explain its purpose. This led him to a painful realization. Rational knowledge had brought me to the recognition that life is meaningless. It was the quiet demise of his brother Nikolai that shook Tolstoy more than all the noise of fame ever could. Nikolai had once been a symbol of brilliance and vitality, an artist, a free spirit, a dreamer. But when he lay suffering from tuberculosis, it wasn't brilliance that mattered. It was the look in his eyes, the fear, the regret, the longing for something beyond this world. Tolstoy was haunted by that moment, watching someone he loved fade into silence, with no answers, no peace. It planted a seed of terror deep inside him. Would his own end look like that too? In a confession, he wrote that this memory returned often, like a shadow he couldn't escape. This wasn't just grief, it was a revelation. The end of life was no longer just an idea, it had become a reality, one that demanded a real response. While Tolstoy wrestled with books and philosophies, the simple peasants around him seemed to carry a secret he could never quite grasp. They worked the soil, prayed with quiet faith, and lived without the torment of existential dread. One day he asked a peasant, "How do you live knowing you'll die?" The man looked at him and said, "We all return to God. That is enough." Tolstoy was stunned, not by the words themselves, but by the serenity behind them. These were men who had nothing, yet feared nothing. Their peace didn't come from theories or sermons. It came from living close to the earth, close to suffering, close to something eternal. For them, meaning wasn't debated, it was lived. And that quiet wisdom began to seep into Tolstoy's soul like rain through cracks in dry ground. As Tolstoy's despair deepened, he started to notice something strange. The people around him, who had far less, peasants, farmers, laborers, seemed more at peace with life than he was. They worked hard, lived simply, and still found reasons to smile, sing, and pray. Unlike Tolstoy, they didn't obsess over abstract ideas or grand theories, yet they seemed to have something he lacked, a quiet confidence in the meaning of life. Tolstoy observed that they didn't rely on intellectual explanations to feel at home in the world. Instead, they had faith, family, tradition, and a deep connection to the rhythms of life. They didn't ask if life had meaning, they lived it as if it already did. He wrote, "It was the people who lived the hardest lives who knew how to live, and not I." From a psychological perspective, this marks a turning point. These working-class people had something modern psychology now recognizes as vital: social connectedness, a sense of purpose, and emotional resilience. Their lives may have been full of hardship, but they weren't filled with despair. They embraced suffering as part of life, not something to avoid or solve. Their routines, rituals, and relationships created a sense of belonging and meaning that Tolstoy's isolated intellect never could. They were present, and in that presence, Tolstoy saw a truth deeper than anything he had read in books. Tolstoy's reflection on the wisdom of the peasants offers a timeless lesson. Sometimes the simplest lives hold the deepest truths. The peasants he encountered didn't ponder the meaning of life. They lived it. In their labor, their faith, and their community, they found something Tolstoy had been searching for his whole life: a deep, intrinsic sense of purpose. They didn't need external validation to feel fulfilled. They understood that meaning was woven into the very fabric of their daily existence. In today's fast-paced, technology-driven world, many of us are disconnected from this kind of grounded, purposeful living. The wisdom of the peasants reminds us that fulfillment isn't found in achievement or accumulation, but in relationships, rituals, and the work we do with our hands and hearts. It's a message that resonates in today's world as we face burnout, existential anxiety, and overwhelming complexity. Embracing the values of simplicity, community, and presence may be the antidote to the emptiness that many of us feel. By reconnecting with the small things, like serving others, tending to our gardens, or practicing daily gratitude, we can reclaim a sense of meaning that transcends the pressures of modern life. Tolstoy's crisis began to shift when he realized that meaning isn't something you figure out with your head. It's something you live with your heart. The peasants weren't asking, "What is the meaning of life?" every day. They were living it through raising children, planting crops, helping neighbors, and trusting in something greater than themselves. Tolstoy began to see that meaning wasn't hidden in books or abstract theories. It was woven into daily life, into the ordinary acts of love, labor, and faith. He wrote, "Faith is the force of life. If a man lives, he believes in something." This realization didn't come all at once, but it was powerful. Meaning wasn't something to be found. It was something to be practiced. From a psychological perspective, this was a profound shift. Tolstoy moved from intellectualizing life to engaging with it. He started spending more time with people who lived simply and faithfully, learning from their example. He began to appreciate how tradition, ritual, and community create a container for meaning. These things gave structure to suffering and beauty to repetition. He also discovered that letting go of control, surrendering to life instead of trying to master it, offered a deep sense of peace. This echoed a core principle in psychology. Acceptance is often more healing than analysis. Tolstoy let go of the need to have every answer. Instead, he chose to be present, to serve, to love, to live with humility. He wrote, "The meaning of life is to serve humanity and to live for others." In this shift, he began to rediscover joy, not in grand achievements, but in the simple act of being alive. Tolstoy's transformation wasn't just philosophical. It was deeply personal and visible in how he chose to live. He began to reject the wealth, fame, and comforts that once defined him. He wore simple clothes, gave up many of his possessions, and distanced himself from the privileges of aristocratic life. He wrote, "I ceased to desire what I had desired before, and began to desire what I had not before." This wasn't a performance. It was a genuine attempt to align his outer life with his inner truth. Psychologically, this marked a major restructuring of identity. The ego, the part of us that craves recognition and control, was no longer in the driver's seat. Tolstoy's values shifted from achievement and individualism to connection, humility, and service. This kind of transformation can be difficult. It often comes with inner resistance, grief, and confusion as old identities fall away. But for Tolstoy, it also brought clarity. He found peace not in answers, but in action, in helping others, walking the land, writing spiritual reflections, and practicing compassion. He discovered a deeper kind of fulfillment. This reflects a truth modern psychology supports. A sense of purpose is often found in contribution, not consumption. Tolstoy no longer needed life to be logical. He needed it to be real. He embraced mystery, leaned into faith, and accepted that not all questions need neat conclusions. In many ways, he began what Carl Jung would later call the process of individuation, the integration of the self beyond the ego. His spiritual awakening didn't erase his struggles, but it gave them meaning. He wrote, "Only in faith can we find the meaning and possibility of life." And in living with that faith, Tolstoy finally began to feel whole. You, sitting there, breathing, watching, won't be here forever, not as a threat, but as a whisper of truth. One day your name will be said for the last time. Your clothes, your laughter, your routines, all of it will vanish like fog in morning light. And in that truth you are free. Free to ask, what really matters before I'm gone? Free to stop living like you have forever. Free to love deeper, speak truer, and walk a path that belongs to you, not the world's expectation. In a world obsessed with hustle, success, and constant noise, Tolstoy's shift toward simplicity feels almost revolutionary. As he shed the trappings of fame and wealth, he began to discover a life that didn't require applause or material possessions to be meaningful. The quiet moments of daily life, the act of living with intention, became his new source of fulfillment. Modern society is beginning to rediscover the value of this simplicity. away from the distractions of technology and consumerism, towards a life centered around what truly matters. In many ways, we are seeing a rise in minimalist movements, mindfulness practices, and a return to nature, all reflecting Tolstoy's insight. People are starting to recognize that success isn't measured by how much we own or how fast we go, but by how deeply we connect with the world around us. As we seek more peace in our chaotic lives, we are learning to embrace the idea that less is often more. Tolstoy's life offers us a profound reminder that meaning doesn't lie in accumulation. It lies in the simplicity of living honestly and fully in the moment. And so, the quiet living he embraced so late in life may just be the antidote to the relentless noise we face today. As Tolstoy's journey unfolded, he came to understand that the meaning of life isn't just about the fleeting moments of personal satisfaction, but about what we leave behind. He shifted his focus from accumulating personal wealth and fame to creating something that could endure beyond his lifetime, a legacy rooted in service to others. This shift in perspective is one that speaks to the heart of human existence, to live for something greater than ourselves. Tolstoy's later works, deeply spiritual and focused on moral responsibility, became a testament to this philosophy. He realized that true fulfillment lies in living a life that impacts others, that nourishes the soul, and that outlives the individual. In a world obsessed with the here and now, this idea of legacy can seem foreign, yet it holds the key to deeper meaning. Living for the future, not just for what we can accomplish in this moment, but for the ripples we send into the future, gives life a profound purpose. By focusing on what we can contribute to the world and the people we affect, we transcend the limitations of our own mortality. Our legacy becomes the measure of a life well lived, one that doesn't fade with time, but continues to touch hearts and minds long after we're gone. Tolstoy's journey, from success to crisis, from despair to renewal, is not just a story of one man. It's a reflection of something many of us feel today. We chase titles, achievements, and recognition, only to wonder why we still feel empty. Tolstoy reminds us that meaning is not out there, it's in here, in the heart, in the home, in how we show up for others and ourselves. In simplicity, in connection, and in surrender, we may find the peace our accomplishments never gave us. So, what about you? Have you ever questioned what really matters? What gives your life meaning when no one's watching? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your story. And if you're on your own path of inner searching, hit subscribe for more explorations of psychology, purpose, and the human experience, because sometimes the most important journey we take is the one within.